How's it going, everybody? This is Justin Boseman back with another Revolution Radio. And very quickly, I'm going to go into kind of my rants of what I want to get out because this week I've been really angry about what I've seen in the media. And I'm going to start just from the beginning of the week and moving on up into this week and just the beginning of the month and what happened and what has been happening. And this podcast, the title is, my Black Leadership Rant. But I think that there needs to be new, legitimate Black leadership for Black people here in this country, because I believe that the old guard of leadership, I think they've gotten away from originally what they were supposed to be doing. I think that their time has passed. I don't think that they see the issues that are really in the Black community as they see them. They're kind of repeating something that they've repeated for the last 40 years that I don't think are relevant even to what is going on today. And I think that when the nation sees them in a position of leadership and speaking for the entire Black community as a whole, I think it makes us as Black people in the Black community look even worse because they misrepresent where we want to go. They misrepresent what it is that I believe that we as Black people in this country, what we can do, what we can achieve, how we can help build, what we can contribute. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different things and a couple of ways of why I think this way and what I've seen. First and foremost, I'm going to start with the outrage that I had, and I had this discussion with some people, and they're going to be mad, but I'm just going to state facts so that people understand why I'm upset. One of the confirmation hearings that I saw in the last couple of days, I finally got a chance to watch most of it, was from someone named, his name is Senator Jeff Sessions, and he was picked to be the Attorney General by President-elect Donald Trump. And the main thing that people wanted to state during his confirmation hearing and even leading up to the confirmation hearing through the media, and this is like a lie that has been stated over and over and over again and misrepresented by news networks such as CNN, MSNBC, all those different types of networks that for some reason people are still watching as if they report legitimate news. There's been a lie about Senator Jeff Sessions that he is this racist, Klan-loving KKK member. Let me state facts about Senator Jeff Sessions. What they didn't tell you is that he was the guy in Alabama who finally went after and prosecuted the Grand Master and leader of the Ku Klux Klan and went after them for the murder of a Black man and even called for the death penalty. Meanwhile, he's racist. That's what they say. He's racist. Then the next lie that they'll say on CNN is, Jeff Sessions was against Black people voting. He was against the Voting Rights Act. He was against Black people voting. And in his record, it shows that he came against Black people who were trying to exercise their right to vote. Let's talk facts. There was a man in the 1960s who wanted to mobilize Black folk down in Alabama to vote, so he began to give them absentee ballots. And they did this all the way up until a certain point until somebody who had seen these ballots, looked at the ballots, and they complained about the way that the ballots looked. So the person who was the DA in charge of investigating this and making sure that it was not fraud and making sure that the absentee ballots were on the up and up, of course, the man who was in office was, of course, had to be Senator Jeff Sessions. So when you're a DA and they bring you a case to look into and to investigate and to prosecute, and when you're the guy who is the attorney general down there, and they bring up a complaint and say, we want you to look at this, you can't show favoritism. So much in the same way that he prosecuted the Ku Klux Klan, called for the death penalty, made them pay over $8 million in damages and bankrupted their organization in their state. Much in the same way that he did that, he had to go after and investigate these absentee ballots. Now, the interesting thing about this, and I'm going to get more into this more, because I'm going to read you a direct quote from the friends and the family of the people who supposedly Jeff Sessions went after, and he ruined their life, and how much he is a racist and all that. I'm going to read some direct quotes about that. But before I do, I want you to notice a trend here. Anytime that the left wants to stop somebody from doing something, the very first thing that they do is they decide that they want to label this person as being a racist or against justice, or they believe in inequality. Just making you understand that. Now, Jeff Sessions, if anything, if you want to look at anything of his track record, Jeff Sessions is an enemy of the white supremacist group, the KKK. This is Jeff Sessions, he worked to desegregate schools, and he prosecuted every Klansman that broke the law against black people with a relentlessness that was not seen prior to him. Let me read this. As a U.S. attorney, he filed several cases to desegregate schools in Alabama. Oh, I mean, but he's racist though. He's racist. I mean, that's what they're saying, right? Voting Rights Act, that was a piece of legislation that came out in 1965. It protects American voters against basically racial discrimination, and it got rid of the things that people tried to do to keep people from voting, such as poll taxes and literacy tests and all those different types of things. So what happened is, I'm going back into the story. He goes and he investigates these absentee ballots. And when you look at the ballots, which you can see online, you can look it up, it does look very suspicious. It does. So guess what? He had to go and he had to look and find an answer or a solution, or figure out what was going on with these ballots. All right. So he goes and he investigates what's going on against the with these ballots. And for some reason, this man who was being prosecuted and who they were looking into, his name was Albert Turner, I believe. I believe what happened is a coalition of basically people who were trying to basically make sure that the people who were voting blacks into a position into the House of Representatives down there in Alabama or into the state Senate, they wanted to make sure that they were real people, that they actually existed. You know, kind of like the way that I think in California, a lot of illegal aliens vote and a lot of dead people vote, you know. But in this case, they actually put somebody on there to actually investigate this and to look into it. Now, appears that Mr. Albert Turner, I believe that's his name, Albert Turner, he was indicted, and basically they went after them, but eventually they were acquitted of all the charges. All right. But his son, this is Albert Turner's son. His name is Albert Turner Jr. Can I read you a quote? He released a letter endorsing Senator Jeff Sessions, the very same man that you guys claim is racist. He wrote a letter that endorsed this man, and the letter reads like this. This is his letter. This is Albert Turner Jr. He says this: I have known Senator Sessions for many years, beginning with the voter fraud case in Perry County, in which my parents were defendants. My differences in policy and ideology do not translate to a personal malice. He is not a racist. As I have said before, at no time then or now has Jeff Sessions said anything derogatory about my family. He was a prosecutor at the federal level with a job to do. He was presented with evidence by a local district attorney that he relied on, and his office presented the case. That's what a prosecutor does. I believe him when he says that he was simply doing his job. I believe that he is someone with whom I and others in the civil rights community can work if given the opportunity. I believe that he will listen, as he has in the past, to the concerns of my community. More than most, I am very familiar with him. I believe he will be fair in his application of how the law and Constitution. And as such, I support his nomination to be the next Attorney General of the United States. Now, keep in mind, this is a black man who wrote this, the same black man who you guys, the people in the black community, are listening to places like CNN say, oh, well, he went after black people for voting and he wanted to strip away the voting rights for black people. A person who is a son of the defendant in that case comes out and tells you, the black person, that he's not a racist. So why do I keep hearing people repeat stuff on CNN that he is a racist? Keep in mind, I said earlier, that is the only card that the left has to play when they can't win an argument about a solution to a problem. They blame it and they put the race card and they play the race game and they race bait. That's all they have. For them, there is no such thing as personal responsibility. Oh, it's always about racism. But that Senator Jeff Sessions, his confirmation hearing, they tried to railroad him. And even somebody who he worked with in the past, who even years ago said that he was a champion of civil rights. Matter of fact, it wasn't even years ago. It was last year. The guy says, oh, he's a champion of civil rights. He has the nerve to come out and say, oh, well, I have a question about his past, and I'm really concerned about this. What? Wait a minute. A year ago, you were singing his praises and saying it was an honor to work with him because he was the man who pushed to get a Rosa Parks statue in Alabama. But now all of a sudden, because you want to run for president in the year 2020, he's a racist now. It's hypocritical. And to be honest, I think most of the leaders in the black community, who the secular world would call leaders in the black community, I think they're just like him. I believe they're just like him. And matter of fact, I'm going to call him up by name. Cory Booker, you're a hypocrite. Cory Booker, you are a hypocrite. I'm going to tell all the black folks listening, Cory Anthony Booker, the senator from New Jersey, is a hypocrite. Unbelievable. See, and these are the kind of people who are in a position of power to dictate policy in the black community. And yet we wonder why we are where we are. Unbelievable. Then we get to the next confirmation hearing that I had a chance to look at and read and see. I didn't get a chance to see Rex Tillerson's, but I did get a chance to look at Dr. Benjamin Carson, who I'm going to use as a big time example of why in the black community, why the black leadership is terrible. Because people like Ben Carson should be leaders in the black community, but instead they're talked down to by these other, I call them the freedom fighters with no more battles left to fight, making up battles. He has to fight against freedom fighters who ain't fighting for freedom, but they're fighting for their checks and their place in a political umbrella. Instead of him being a leader in the black community, he's looked upon as being the coon. Oh, he's an Uncle Tom. Oh, he's against black people. He forgot where he came from. And in his confirmation hearing, he talks about the things that I've been saying for a long time, that it's not about the system and the government providing assistance to all these people. It's not about the government giving people more stuff. It's about how we get people to take personal responsibility and to develop themselves to be self-sufficient without having to rely on people. But yet, when you hear somebody say that, oh, he's a coon, he's an Uncle Tom, he's a racist. And then we have the senator who decides to come and wants to ask him a question, and she wants to ask him a question such as, and I'm quoting her, this is what I remember watching, can you guarantee the American people that not $1 will be spent from housing and urban development will be given to Donald Trump and his real estate group? Meanwhile, nobody anywhere could ever guarantee that. Number one, so it's a loaded question. Number two, are you implying that he doesn't have integrity? Are you implying that he's like your party mate who just ran for office, Hillary Clinton, who goes into pay for play? Who actually accepts bribes from people? Are you saying that he's like her? I'm sorry, Miss Senator, but not everybody lowers their standards and sells out. Not everybody sells their country out. Some people actually have the integrity to know when something is a conflict of interest. But yeah, you want to sit up there and act as if Ben Carson is going to be in collusion with Donald Trump and his family to make them more money? How dare you? And these are the kind of people who you guys are putting in office. Black folks, you're putting these people in office. What makes me mad, even more upset now, because this is why I had to get on and make a video. I saw a former freedom rider, I believe his name is Reverend John Lewis, and he wanted to get on and talk about how Donald Trump was not a legitimate president and how he was this and that. And he always wants to play this card. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you something that's going to be very inflammatory. And I don't care. I'll be the one who says it. his time and his era is over. I'm going to say that again. The time for the guys in the black community who are merely civil rights activists, the time is over. I'm sitting here. Oh, hold on. Let me say that again and pound the table as I say it. The time for black community leadership, who their only thing is civil rights, that time is over. Why? Because we live in an era where there is no segregation. We got what we wanted to get in the 60s. We have voting rights acts. There is affirmative action, which works as backwards racism now. More blacks are millionaires in this country than ever before. But yet you want to sit up and act as if we're unequal because of our economic problems. Black people, we don't have a civil rights issue. We have an economic issue. And the reason why we have an economic issue is because we have not addressed the moral issues in our community. If our communities would address the moral issues, it would affect the economics, which then would make it so that you could see that we, in fact, have the same opportunities that anybody else has who comes to this country. But yet they want to address those problems. They want to address the fact that when single people and when single women have kids, it usually will doom their children into a lifestyle of poverty. Nobody talks about that, though. Nobody talks about the solution to that problem, which is, why don't we have an abstinence program? Why don't we teach women to not have sex before they're married? Why don't we teach women to only have kids when they're married? Why don't we teach women to get husbands? Why don't we teach our children to be responsible with their bodies and say no to sex, but yes to relationship? Why don't we teach our children to get an education? Why don't parents take more of an active role of educating their kids, whether it be paying money for them to go to private school or making sure that the schools that they go to, even in the bad neighborhoods, that they actually know their teachers' names. They know what the teachers teach. They know how good their students are. They know what their children can do and what they can't do, and they can tutor their kids. Where's the personal responsibility? You won't hear that from the black civil rights leaders, though. Oh, no. It's always about what the white man did. The white man did this, and the system is keeping us down, and we need the system to help us. We don't need the system to help us no more. We need for us, the black people, to stand up and take our own responsibility for our own actions. Black people need to hold black people accountable for what's going on in our neighborhoods. Do you think that the white and Caucasian people who sit in the suburbs, do you think that they sit around and they come up with all types of devious plans to oppress the people in the inner cities? No, they don't have to do that. Why? Because we do it ourselves by making poor choices, by having out of wedlock children, by choosing not to get educated, by choosing not to pursue owning our own businesses, by choosing to remain ignorant and choosing to rely on the system and the government and blaming other people. And guys like Cory Booker, yeah, I'm calling him out. I'm calling you out, Cory Booker. All you black Democrats, I'm calling you out. People in the black community who keep voting for these black Democrats and they put them in office and they're talking about the police oppressing them and all this other nonsense. I blame y'all. Why? Because you have a role to play in your community. You can talk to the police chief. You can have a dialogue with the police. You can get your sons and daughters into the police force. You can get your sons and daughters educated to make them judges in the system. But you won't do that. Oh, no. No. It's all about what somebody didn't do for you. Well, what the government didn't do. How they held you down. I'm sick of it. And you know what? Black America, this is me saying this. Black America, white America is sick of hearing it. You want to know why Donald Trump won? You got guys who want to go up and call it a white lash. I don't think so. I think people are sick of seeing groups of people blame every problem they have on everybody else but themselves. Is that what you teach your children? Do we teach our children that you have absolutely no effect in how your life plays out? We don't teach that, do we? No, we teach when you work hard, you eventually reap what you sow. We teach that you can't keep a man down who puts his hands to the field and works consistently. In a free market system, when you're the best at something or you work harder than somebody else, you eventually get what is due. Reason why other people in under different backgrounds have economic power is because their parents passed it down and they were taught how to pass it down to their children. But in the black community, most of the time, our children aren't being passed anything except a reliance upon the system. Black people, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of hearing about it. There is no role today for black civil rights. Instead, what we need to be talking about are moral values, economic and fiscal responsibility, how to restore the black family and the black community, how to support each other in the black community. But these aren't topics of conversations at any Democratic National Convention, at any Democrat town hall meeting, at any NAACP meeting. Yeah, I'm talking about y'all too. You don't see Van Jones on CNN talking about that. You don't see Tavis Smiley talking about that. You don't see Cornel West talking about that. All you see is them complaining and saying, oh, well, they're going to do this and they're going to have my people up against the wall. They're taking black people back to slave days. All lies. And the Negroes who believe those lies, you're the reason why your community is in the condition that it is in. It's because of you. I blame you. And the only people who are going to be able to fix it are the Negroes who speak truth to y'all and who speak against the grain and who tell you that what you've believed for the last 40 years is a lie and there's a better way. And the better way is for you to stand up and point the finger back at yourself and say, what can I do to change my environment? I can start with my family. I can start with my community. I can start by teaching people not to go through the same thing that I went through. I can start by supporting education in our community. There wouldn't be a need for magnet schools and charter schools if the parents in these inner city neighborhoods took responsibility for their kids' education. But they don't. And they'll blame the government and say it's the government's job to come up with a solution for a family problem. What type of nonsense is that? There is a time now that is needed for new black leadership in the black community who are going to challenge people, not to blame somebody else, but to tell them and to remind them of the potential that they have within themselves to fix the problems that they have. Black people, we're here, but we don't got to stay here. And then you want to come at me and call me an Uncle Tom and a coon. I'm the Uncle Tom and the coon who's trying to get you out of your slave plantation-like mentality and give you a spirit of empowerment. Question is are you going to reject it, or are you going to receive it and take the first step? This has been Revolution Radio with Justin Boseman. Please comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you're mad, if you unsubscribe, I understand. But more importantly, look at the condition and look at yourself in the mirror and see what you can do. Until next time.